All right, we are live. Jesus Christ, Mitch, start it, and you're like clicking a pen or something. But yeah, this is discussion number 20, big 2-0. Talking about Inside, a game that came out a couple of years ago, but is probably one of the best, one of my favorite games of all time. But initial release date July 7th, 2016. Developed and published by Playdead. Costs $20 or your regional equivalent. Platforms Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, Windows, iOS, and Apple TV, and Nintendo Switch. Inside is a stylish puzzle platformer adventure game developed and published by Playdead. Hunted and alone, a boy finds himself drawn into the center of a dark project. And we can start out by introducing ourselves and giving our initial impressions. Because I'm talking, I'll just go ahead. I'm Zach. I've finished the game. Haven't found all of the secrets, but I watched the secret ending on YouTube. And my initial impressions are, like I already said, this is one of my favorite games of all time. Just about everything it does extremely well. And is a phenomenal game. And who's next?
I'm Nick. Got this on PC. I really wish I knew it was on Switch because otherwise I would have bought it on there. I did not even think to look on there. And my impressions were so-so. There are aspects of the game that I liked a lot and some that I didn't like so much, but that's just all opinion based, so whatever. I don't know, I'm still working through my feelings because I just feel like I have to talk to other people to really know how I'm feeling about it.
I'm Mitch. I have completed the game probably 7 times through now.
Oh, Jesus.
I bought it day one when it came out, and I've loved the game since the first second I started playing it, and would give it a 10 out of 10.
11 out of 10 with rice.
All right, I'm Noah. I completed the game. I really enjoyed it. I don't really think it's a game I would really go back to and play again, other than to maybe find all the secrets and just get the secret ending myself. But other than that, I feel like it doesn't have a whole lot of replay value in my opinion, but it's still a really good game.
Take that up with Mitch.
Yeah. I couldn't play it 7 times. That's so many, like...
Oh, it's been 7 times over 3 years. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a relatively simple game. It's a side-scrolling puzzle platformer. You've probably seen us play like multiple other games like it for this discussion, but I think this one really stands out just because of a combination of like the atmosphere, like an amazing story that is told to you without a single line of dialogue, and a world that just sucks you right in. Like we haven't talked about the art on a ton of games, but I would really like to talk about the art for this one.
Mm-hmm. Can we start with mechanics since that's just a very small talking point?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Start with that.
So first of all, it's, as they said, a side scroller, and pretty much the main objective is to always go right. But some paths will be blocked, so you'll have to go up left, up right, down right to unlock paths to go even more right. And it's mostly just moving left, right, down, jumping, and then grabbing. And one of my quick grips about this, it doesn't really matter, but it was just a little thing that irked me right in the beginning because it seemed like they really wanted you to be in the atmosphere of the game and really immersed. So they don't tell you the controls. But for keyboard, Jesus Christ, could I not find the control to fucking grab? So then I had to go into the menu and break my immersion to fucking go to the controls to figure out what controls actually exist. And then it turns out the grab was the right control. Fuck you. Like, who makes that control? Like, I get it now. Like, it's to make it so you can all play with one hand, but that wasn't very intuitive. So that just irked me a little bit.
I could see, every time I've played, I've always played on Xbox. So I've always played a controller, so it's just different. But I could see with keyboard that it'd be kind of weird to not give you anything.
Well, even though with like controller, like I'm sure it's just the toggle stick, right, to do all the movements.
Yeah, you just move with the stick, and then it's
Yeah, but
A
then you
and
have like
X.
50 other buttons to.
But
So,
on a controller though, like to interact with something, it's usually X or A. Like
I
there's
guess
not
you got
usually.
a more limited set to try out. So yeah, so yeah, I don't know. That was just one thing. So it was just like a little bump there. So it wasn't a big deal afterwards. And then yeah, it's mostly using those controls to interact with other objects that they throw at you in the game to use.
Yeah, because it's
and
pretty
launch
much
other-
that's the only thing is just interacting with the environment, and it's just that as you progress through the environment, there's different things that you can either control or that affect you that you're trying to avoid. There's a lot of avoiding death situations in the game.
Yeah, but for example, you can grab like ropes that are hanging up and climbing them and swinging them, grab onto any sort of object to pull or push them so you can climb up to them to climb up onto higher platforms, grabbing stuff so you can open up hatches. There's the mind control thing, which we'll get into later. I don't think there's a whole lot more extra to that, except for very specific scenarios with the environment. So yeah, that's pretty much the general mechanics.
Yeah, it's not that complicated of a game. Like Nick said, you can play it pretty much with one hand, basically. It's
Yeah.
on mobile, so you can play it on your phone, and I can imagine that would be pretty easy to do. Kind of sucks that it's only on iOS. I'm not sure if it's on
Apple
Android.
paid for that shit.
Yeah, I can believe that.
So where should we go next? Just a little bit of the story.
We should probably kind of go through the story because then the
Just-
mechanics that involve the helmet and stuff will make more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's
Mitch, you
definitely-
played it the most. I think you would be the best, probably. Just explain the first little bit, like.
Alright, well, so basically when you start, you play as this little boy wearing a red t-shirt. And you kind of...
That's important.
It is important. But you just start in a forest, and you just kind of like start walking through the forest, but then pretty quickly you come across other human beings that are around, and at first you don't really have any interaction with them. You just kind of see them in the distance, because since even though this is like a side scroller, it's all 3D, so there's depth in the world, and so you can see stuff in the background. There's stuff going on, so you come across some humans in the beginning of the game, but then quite quickly you realize that all these other humans want to kill you or capture you, and so as you're progressing through the game, you come into different encounters with these humans that require you to, like, sometimes you're hiding or like just timing certain things correctly or running away. But pretty quickly you kind of discover that this is like a weird kind of dystopia with all these creepy dudes wearing masks who want to kill you.
Yeah, I have to say, the setup kind of threw me for a loop and like set up an idea that I had that I thought was about the game. Because quickly in the beginning, when people see you and spot you and try to chase after you and kill you, there were many different ways on how it happened. One of the things I liked was when a truck was driving by, and if you came out too soon, the guy on the back would just shoot and hit you and kill you right away. But if you slightly just wait a little bit and the truck like kind of veers off, but then you go off, but then the back guy still sees you, he like jumps off of the back of the truck and then starts chasing you along with like this other dude. That makes it a little bit more suspenseful. Or you could have just completely waited until like it completely went away and then continued on. So like I thought this whole thing was going to be sort of a chase scenario, like wait, run at certain times and like different scenarios would happen, even though they happen at the same place. But it turns out it's just more for that opening sequence, and then it gets pretty calm a little bit later.
Yeah, it's mostly just the beginning. There's a few other times where you have some instances with other humans that are negative, but it's mostly just like the setup in the beginning. But I do like talking about just that part, and then as you go forward in the game is very brutal to you.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times you have no clue you're gonna die, and then suddenly you're dead, and you're like, what just happened?
And that's like the entire like level design process of this kind of game, as well as Limbo, it's like most of the encounters you have to die to understand, like, oh, this is how I die, and now I need to try to avoid it. And normally you die at least like a couple of times because it's like trial and error to figure out a lot of these
Yeah,
puzzles.
like
I actually purposely died a lot in the beginning because of different scenarios that happened, because like each animation death was completely different. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I want to see each different way.
oh yeah, definitely. There's a lot of really brutal deaths too, and it's like really interesting to see how they all work. Like what
Mhm.
happens.
Yeah, like the one part where the guy is chasing you, and the like if he catches you just like in the grass or something, he'll like strangle you. But if he like catches you when you're like running through a puddle, he'll like drown you in the puddle. And it's interesting how they've got like that kind of contextual animations and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought a lot of the game was going to be constant running and avoiding shit on a moment to moment basis, pretty much.
But yeah, after you get away from that one car where you swim away, then you kind of like don't see people for a long time.
Yeah,
just
you
the-
like go into an like city-ish type place, right?
First you go through the farm, and then
Farm.
as you progress through the farm, you like slowly are moving more and more into like an industrialized area until you get into like the city, and then from the city it goes into like the what I kept describing as aperture science labs from Portal 2.
Yeah.
And like I pointed out when we were playing through it, it's like Aperture, but not funny.
Yeah, no, there's no funniness at all.
Zero comedy. It's really a very like serious kind of oppressive atmosphere.
Now, to add on to this, just the environments themselves, you see like you progress through different types of environments, but the storytelling is also in the environment.
Yeah,
All of it is
Mhm.
essentially.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, because there is no words spoken. There's nothing for you to read. It's all visual.
Everything about the story is visual, and I think that's part of the reason I like the game so much. I am a huge fan of environmental storytelling, and I think that this game has done an incredible job. So you come out of the game at the very end, you don't really know exactly what happened, but you also have a really good idea of what this world is, and that this world is fucked up to all hell.
And I like the very subtle natures that they begin with, because it really makes you think and like, oh, where's the story going to go? And as they slowly reveal a little bit more to you, you keep thinking like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. I feel like this is what's probably going to happen next. But then as you continue, it's always very different than what you probably imagine.
Yeah, it's revealed to you in little tidbits. Like it's just a bunch of small parts. Like the very first thing you see in the game is a truck filled with people being loaded up and then driving away. Like right away, what do you think about that? It's like there's not a lot of context. You just see people in a truck.
Yeah. At first, I was thinking like, oh, like you lived up in this village or something, and people out there, I don't know exactly who, maybe the government, just some sort of powerful entity who's just like, we need to get rid of this area, and all these people have to go.
Yeah, and then yeah, as it progresses further, you kind of start seeing like there's like kind of guards everywhere and like checkpoints. Like, because there's a one part where you go down and you see the truck in the distance, and there's like checkpoint gates and barbed wire and shit. So obviously something's like kind of fucked up. And then obviously once you get further along, you find out that they're just going to kill you on sight. So that like further iterates that these people are not good. And then you get to the farm, and then it kind of like changes a little bit. Then you have like more time to like just process that you're in this like really abandoned world. Like there's nobody anywhere. Like when you get to past the farm, there's just like dead pigs like everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Just like fucking tons of dead pigs just piled up, and like that doesn't happen unless something went wrong.
Yeah. And with all that beginning area, I think they establish a really good basis of like what this world's kind of about. And they just even reveal more to you later on, which is great.
Another thing that's in the beginning that's really minor, but it definitely right away puts it in. So even though in the beginning you really don't see that much about the world, it's like really small tidbits. You do see some of these weird pods with like lights inside them glowing and like these tubes that go up in the air, and they're never really explained, but I think that they do a good job of like getting you to realize that this is like some sort of weird sci-fi shit right from the beginning. Because why would there be these weird science-y architecture things? I don't even know how to describe them. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? The pod things?
Okay, I probably think I know what you mean. Just weird giant.
They're like
They
cylinder
just-
tube things.
They just feel like they don't belong in the modern world.
Yeah, and they're also just like in the forest. Like,
Yeah.
why the fuck are they in the forest?
Yeah.
I can't really remember those.
Yeah, I'm having slight troubles remembering. I think that's good enough to talk about the story right there. Before we like go too deep, because I definitely want to keep the story for.
Yeah,
Our
it's definitely.
But I think that's a good basis to start off. You guys want to talk about art?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
So
the art is gorgeous.
so yeah, it's a pretty simple art style.
It's really simple.
It's probably one of the more simple art style games that we've played on this channel, but the usage of things like atmosphere, fog, lighting, particles, filters, effects, stuff like that, it makes it one of the most visually interesting games.
And not only that, the sound design too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Everything about this game, kind of from the like minimalist zero HUD or whatever to kind of those. It's got a lot like Limbo. It has procedural animation. Like if you jump and you just barely make a jump, your character will like grab onto the ledge and climb up.
Is it ragdoll animations? I think it's ragdoll animations, all of it.
It's definitely very heavily ragdoll, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, your physics just very heavily influence the animation. Like if you jump off of something, your character, like depending on how high you jump, your character will like do a tuck and roll or just hit the ground really hard, or you might just even die and completely ragdoll or something like that. And there was a lot of this kind of stuff in Limbo, but with this kind of game where it's actually 3D and not 2D, there's so much more depth and so much more detail to everything, even though it is such a very minimalistic art style.
I think part of that too is that they use lighting a lot in like how the world is portrayed. Like lighting is super important to this game.
Well, it's even tied to some mechanics too.
Yeah, it's tied into
Yeah.
a lot of different mechanics, and lighting is a lot of what makes the game so beautiful because there isn't a lot going on, and like most things are just straight up gray. Like there isn't
Yeah.
a lot of textures or even color variety. Like most of the color in the game is gray, with a little bit of like yellows from the sun and then some reds for like important things. Otherwise, it's pretty much this like gray blue color.
And another great thing about the lighting is it's not only very visually impressive, but it's also very functional. Lighting is often like used to show where you're supposed to go, where you're supposed to stand in different puzzles, and it's not only lends to the visual style, but also is a game mechanic in of itself.
Yeah, draws your eyes, like makes you pay attention to certain areas, really controls what you're looking at.
Yeah, same with color. Like almost everything that you're going to interact with is going to be a color that stands out, whereas the rest of the game is pretty gray.
Yeah, like a lot of objects that you can interact with on pull and stuff are just red,
Mm-hmm.
but also not
Yeah,
like
red.
a super bright red, but
Yeah,
different.
it's very
it's-
dull red.
Yeah, but still, like you don't see red often, so it's very good indication that you can interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I thought was interesting was the choice of not putting faces on people.
Yeah,
Everyone has a blank face.
Mhm.
I think that it works well. I think that it
Yeah.
prevents us from having that weird, uncanny Valley-esque stuff. And
But
just
not even that, but I think it also serves a purpose more for symbolism in the story it's sort of telling.
yeah, I think that could fit. And then I think the other thing that's interesting is that yeah, no one has faces, but then also the bad people all wear masks to cover up the fact that they don't have faces,
Mhm.
which is
But their
interesting.
masks have at least like eye slots in them.
I think something like that. I don't remember.
Yeah, at least eye slots. I don't think there's anything else to them. But yeah, I thought that was a very interesting part, but it definitely does not take away from anything because, as you guys said, like there's no really texture on stuff. It's mostly shading on objects. But I really like that though.
Yeah, like the only thing with like probably detailed faces at all is the dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even they're pretty simplistic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, beyond that, I don't have a ton to say about the art except that it's really good. Like
Yeah,
I was playing a little bit before, and it was like, man, the rain and just the overall atmosphere of the game is just spot on.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the sound design. Probably one of my
Yeah.
favorite sounds is probably climbing chains.
Mhm.
It just sounds very good, but not over the top. Because it kind of sounds a little bit like heavy plastic chains and not exactly metal chains. I know that sounds weird, but it makes a difference.
I don't know. Also, I really like that there is music, but it's also not really music.
It's very
more
like ambient. And just,
Yeah.
like background.
and it's directly affected by what you, the player, are doing and what's going around in the world around you. Because there are
Yeah.
certain times where when you solve a certain puzzle mechanic, suddenly all the sound effects change to correlate to that thing happening, and then
Mhm.
also to like further reiterate to you that you did something right.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like there's like that one puzzle that you're doing where you're kind of like in a tank and then there's like no sound.
Oh yeah, we talked about that when you were going through that.
Yeah.
Just like towards the end of the game, there's this one where you could control the level of the water, and you had to like move a box. And like when you're in that chamber, like your view
You're
playing
like
the character is
looking for
outside of the chamber that your
Oh,
character
yeah,
is in.
I
And so
remember.
because you're outside the chamber, there's no sound, like which is really interesting. And
I think
it's
that
like
was purely for just because of that room itself.
yeah,
But it was,
Yeah.
just that room. But it's really interesting when they make choices like that because it stands out when there's suddenly no sound. You're like, whoa, what's up with this?
yeah. I guess you guys want to continue to the rest of the story parts?
You kind of just
Maybe?
obviously, if people are listening, we're spoiling this game. You should just not listen to us.
It's a
Yeah.
very short game, so
But we probably should just like keep walking through what happens in the game and talk about it. I think that's the easiest way to talk about this game.
Yeah, just keep follow.
yeah. So basically, I'd say after the farm parts, when we experience the next sort of
It's like
weird,
right at the end of the farm part is like when you first get the helmet.
yeah,
Yeah, you use the helmet thing, and that's when stuff starts getting really weird.
yeah, the story starts expanding and really lets your mind wander of like what's happening.
Yeah, so you get to a part in the farm where there's this hat thing hanging from the ceiling, and you put it on.
Don't you have to like drag a pig?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you do. You have to drag a dying pig and stand on
Mhm.
top of it.
And it's a little fucked up. But yeah, you put it on, and you realize, like, oh, there are actually people in the background, and they stand up, and you can like control them. Your character is kind of like miming walking around, and those guys are walking around, and you gotta. That happens a number of times throughout the farm and the city, and it kind of lends to this running theme of mind control throughout the story, throughout the game. And once you get to the actual city, you see kind of where all the people the other people, the masked people have been taking these people. And I think the story does a really good job of kind of like easing you into and leading you to kind of what the conclusion is.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you first get to the city. You hear this like marching, but you don't really know what the hell's going on. It's just like this tons of people walking in line. You just hear that noise in the beginning, and then the first time you see anything, you're on top of a building, and you like can look down into the city, and you see these lines of people like marching to the right, but you're too far away to really see anything, so you have any idea what's going on.
But not only just marching, but marching identical and in sync.
Yes.
Which kind of triggers like, hey, this doesn't really seem right. Like,
yeah,
it almost seems almost the same effects that like when you were wearing the mind control hat, when you were controlling the people.
Yeah. And then there's this one time where you have to lower yourself down into like the floor of the city, and you get the really close up look, and you're standing right next to these lines of marching people, and it becomes pretty obvious that they're kind of like zombies. They're just kind of like arms just like flopping in line.
They don't even pay any attention to you.
Yeah, did you why do you guys think that happened? Like, obviously we are well into spoilers. I'll probably put something at the beginning of the video that says, like, if you haven't played the game, just
don't listen to this.
Yeah. Or I'll put something that says, like, stop as soon as we start talking about the story. But basically, what do you think? How do you think those people zombies?
A little bit more specific?
What?
Can you be just a tad bit more specific?
Well, what do you think was up with those people being zombies? What do you think caused it? I think it's probably something to do with those worms that were in the pigs, because it made it was definitely making that one pig go like feral, but I'm not really sure if that's the same thing that is causing the things with all the people.
Well, isn't that kind of like a mechanic that was in Limbo too, where like a worm would fall on your head and you would like...
You lost control of yourself in Limbo when the worms took over. Like the worm took control of you.
So I'm just replaying the beginning of the game right now, and I see all those crazy pods that you were talking about, Mitch.
Yeah.
I don't know if those could be related to just kind of dull the senses of people and to make it so they could connect to the brain caps, and then there's just some scientist worker who's just controlling a bunch of people to march in line.
They definitely leave it kind of up in the air as to what
I totally did not think of
controlling them.
Yeah, I totally did not think of the whole worm thing in the pigs, so that could be an interesting guess too.
I also think, I don't want to really go into it yet, but I also think how the game ends could also directly relate to why everyone's marching in a line.
Yeah.
But we can come back to that, because I don't...
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know. What do you think, Zach? The worm parasite?
I really don't know. I think, because I don't really remember seeing those pods that Mitch mentioned.
They're just heavy in the beginning in the forest when you see a bunch of people take
it. So maybe that was something caused by that corporation that... Obviously, I think the corporation did something to start mind controlling these people, because they're the ones gathering them up. They're the ones bringing them to the city and processing them. And
it definitely seems like at the first time you really are able to see other people is when you fall into the line and you have to fake your way across, which is a really interesting part. That's when you first get to see these people who are in control up close, and it does seem very obvious that some sort of upper echelon of a corporation or government or something basically fucked all their citizens and said, we're doing this now, you guys are all our slaves, and then now they just run everything, you know.
Can we talk about that part quick? Because I think that's probably my favorite part of the game is when your character messes up, or not really messes up, but gets in an accident where he just falls into the line of people and they're all zombies and your kid is not. So he has to act like he's part of it. So part of the game mechanics is you have to kind of copy what the people are doing around you. And I thought that was really cool because there was also a bot who was also suspicious and just shining a light on you, keeping an eye, hey, is this guy actually under control or what's going on? And it's mostly just marching, and during the march I counted how many steps it would take so I could really be in sync with them. And then at certain points they would have these interesting little checkpoints where they would test sort of very simple commands of these mind control people. Like the first test was jumping, and the second test was like turning around. And I just really loved it because it felt super suspenseful.
Yeah, it's super intense, and then it also like just says a lot about the people watching that they don't. Well, it's like these
felt
zombies
so-
around you are like they're. It's like cattle. It's like all these humans, or if
felt-
they're even alive anymore, zombies or whatever, they're just cattle to these other people. Like we're just this product or whatever. Like they just don't. There's obviously zero shits given about these people anymore.
Yeah, the people wearing the mask felt super cult-like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to point out, because this is the first time you see it, but it's reiterated throughout the game, is that this is normal to them. And the reason you know it's normal to them is that there's tons of kids there.
Mm-hmm.
You're like it's a bunch of adults with their kids all just sitting there watching this like product test. Like you don't bring kids to something like that unless it's normal. Like that's because this is obviously fucked up, but not to them. So I think that just the fact that there are kids there and that you see kids a lot throughout the game just says a lot about this world and these people and like how far along into this fucked up nature everything is. Like this isn't something that happened recently, I don't think. This seems like something that happened a while ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seeing children being involved like really made me like think like there's like a society with living within a society,
Yeah.
much, and it just like made everything feel more fucked up.
Yeah, definitely.
Then that's when you get back with right after that's when you start interacting with dogs again, and dogs are fucking the worst.
Yep.
Like a lot of the I think the good thing is a lot of the like game mechanics and stuff that kills you are very like tied together with the story. Like the line where you got to walk and play along like you're a zombie for a little bit. The whole thing about that is if you mess up, it like shoots you with a spear tied to a cord, and
Just drags you off
I
screen.
think that's actually really like well designed sort of thing.
They did such a good job with like all the deaths.
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
With that special one, as you talked, I think of it like a taser thing, but that really made me feel like a pest.
Oh yeah.
Just like how easy it was to just shoot that thing instantly to get me. I just go down. Like I really felt like I was literally nothing to them.
You literally are nothing to them.
Yeah, like they got this thing planned out. Where were we beyond that?
Well, one thing I want to mention, so like right after that, I like how that it transitions. So you've been like moving throughout the world up to that point, and then you like fall and like start suddenly go into this intense experience of like what we talked about, like going through that line, and then you're finally like getting out of that line. And you're like, oh, it's almost over. The intense experience is done, and then that's when you see the dog, and the dogs obviously know you're not a zombie because dogs are more intelligent and they can probably tell a difference through smell or whatever. But then I like how it leads you from one intense experience to thinking you're free to then setting you down another long chase sequence of like intense sequences of being killed by dogs over and over again.
And the dogs killing you are like brutal. Like they like tackle you and like rip your throat out.
Jeez, yeah, that felt
Like
Hopping that one fence.
Yeah, constantly
50
going back
times.
and forth over that fence. So that's an intense sequence.
Yeah.
It's like you fuck up once and you're like,
Yeah.
oh god, I have to do this all again now. I got to go back over the fence 4 times or
I
whatever.
don't even know how many times I had to climb over that fence.
Yep.
After
And
the fence, where do you end up after that?
after the fence,
just in sort of the big laboratory, like
That's
main-
kind of when you start getting into the big facility, I think, right?
Yeah. It just seems like one giant place. It doesn't really seem cohesive after that. It just seems like one giant area.
It's like I said, that's where it seems more like the Aperture Science Labs
Yeah.
of like Portal 2, where it's just these massive facilities.
It feels futuristic because of how fucking big this place is.
Yeah. And it's also interesting as you progress forward, you start also coming into contact with a lot more water, and you start seeing that these buildings that we've been in are also flooded, and like there's so much that looks like they're what used to be like used. It's now not because there's water just like flooded over the whole thing.
Then bunch of growth happening and all that. So it really does indicate like a good maybe 50 years that those buildings have been there but flooded.
Yeah,
least.
there's definitely a lot of time that has passed since anyone has used most of these buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has that like creepy science lab feel from like you have like the big sonic wave that just like blows you to pieces.
Yeah.
Oh, that's way later, yeah. I want to talk about the water areas first because that's one of the areas or aspects of the game that I
Fuck
felt
the little water kid.
But you
I'm
felt
not-
what about it?
just felt down about it because like I'm not in video games. I'm not a huge person when they work water within the game and like is a heavy aspect of the game. I just don't like it personally because I just feel it feels everything's clunky and slow and just like I just don't really have interest underwater stuff unless they really make it interesting.
I think a lot of the mechanics around like using light against the I'm just gonna call it the water kid.
The water kid.
I thought a lot of those were interesting because a lot of it was like you got a positioner in a spot where you can actually like make it through like a specific gate, closing gates behind you. And that was in itself kind of a chase sequence because it's this thing that's like trying to kill you underwater. And it was definitely a little bit clunky, but I think that's kind of, I don't want to say like it's meant to be that way, but at the same time, swimming in itself is kind of clunky. So
Yeah,
I thought
swimming
it
is definitely clunky.
yeah. And I think it was good because it's like you were a very kind of clunky thing, and this thing that knows how to swim is trying to kill you. And I thought that was
I
might
think
have gone on a
like
little-
threatening nature.
I think using the water pod was really nice, like because it really did make water parts a lot more bearable and all that. But I just felt like they used that part and just dragged it out a little too long.
Yeah.
Like I was just getting so bored with it and just kept tabbing out so many times because I'm like, a few minutes of this, all right, I'm bored already. Like
I love the part where you stole the sub, where you just gotta like wait until those two guys are just like they leave, and then you're just like, I'm jacking your shit.
Was it right after where I think this is probably one of my favorite parts of the game also was when you break down using the sub, like breaking through some boards or something.
Yeah, you just like slam through them.
It opens you up and it just pans the camera super far back and it just shows just really deep water. You can go super far down and you just feel completely alone in this underwater environment.
Yeah, when you're in that sub, the spaces get enormous.
Yeah.
You're in these like massive cavernous buildings that are flooded with water. And like it's obvious that you're not just like in an ocean, you're in a building. And like they're huge. It's really interesting going through all of that.
And it's not always just like easy going from one room to the next. It's like there's a bunch of rubble or doors blocked and you have to find ways to get through them or use your sub to break through areas that were cool. I don't know, I felt like that whole area part was just dragged out a little too long for me. I
definitely
prefer my character running and I don't know, I liked running more.
For me, it didn't bother me. I enjoyed both, but I can kind of see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'd say it didn't really change the game too much for me in terms of judgment or anything. Like, it didn't drag out too long. I'm just like so sick of it. So, wasn't that bad.
Oh, and then so being in that whole water area, there's like you said that water kid or whatever you were calling him. Like, that's a whole nother thing that like isn't really ever explained, but is also just this bizarre, obviously some sort of experiment gone wrong. What were you saying, Nick?
Oh, I have a theory. Sorry, I was just gonna let you finish. Sorry.
No. Yeah. What's your theory?
So my theory, like the water kid, almost feels like almost identical to you. Maybe like a kid tried this before, maybe, but like because eventually throughout the story you get pierced with something. The water kid pierces you with something to make you able to breathe indefinitely in the water.
Yeah, there's that like
I feel like-
plug that with like the glowy light in your body.
Yeah, so I feel like that happened to a kid before, and then he just he loved the water so much, he's just like, I'm gonna live my life in here, and then who knows afterwards.
I like how when they first introduced the water kid too, it's like this creepy thing. Like, what the fuck was that? Like, you just kind of like see something move, and then your first interaction with it is it just literally drowns you instantly, just breaks your sub, and just like water sucks in and you're dead.
Yeah, he's a dick.
Mm-hmm.
Then he saves your life.
Yeah, weird. I don't.
Well, kills you and saves your life.
Yeah.
The one thing I'm wondering was that the same one every time?
Yeah, who knows?
Good. I don't think so. I think that I interpret it as there's multiple, because part of it's because of how much time passes between when you see him again.
Yeah.
'Cause,
And also because there's puzzle aspects when he's chasing you for you to like block him out of the area to
yeah,
block him from
exactly.
chasing you.
And there's a few times where you can see in the background of the environment that there's like some like cells that have like people hooked up with cords just floating in the water, and like other stuff like that, so that have long hair and stuff like that. So it's definitely, I think there's more than one.
Yeah.
So should we continue from getting underwater superpowers?
Yeah.
Well, the
Is
whole
it
sequence
that
of
where,
getting the
like-
powers is really interesting. That like really long fall to the
That was-
lowest level.
Gorgeous and confusing a little bit. Because at first I thought I was dead, but then I kept going and I'm like, what? What's going on? Like, is this just a really long death and I'm bugged out? But then
Yeah.
and then I start seeing, oh no, it's actually more story related now. Like, you floated very to the bottom.
And it goes on for a long time. Like
Yeah.
it's a long
Mhm.
drop to the floor. Like you keep going and going and going until you open up to that giant space at the bottom with the
With this giant light shining.
yeah.
That was gorgeous.
And then it's like, oh, new mechanics. Well, kind of. I guess it is new mechanics in that now you can just swim. Now you don't have to worry about air anymore. You just swim wherever, which is pretty cool. And then you're able to explore a lot more with just yourself swimming around.
I was so mad after I found out I could breathe indefinitely. It was like, nice, I could, but it was also like, fuck, there's going to be so much more water shit.
Like one thing, like this is kind of off topic, but going back to the kind of procedural animations, one little detail that I thought was really interesting is at the beginning of the game when you're just kind of swimming along the surface of the water, your character will pick its head out of the water to breathe, like you do if you're actually doing like a front stroke. And I just thought that was a very interesting detail that they didn't like necessarily need to have. But
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of really tiny details in like the way you move with animations and all of that.
what happens after the
So I
You
think
get
this
the
is where we
infrastructure.
start seeing more fucked up shit. So like more mind-controlled humans, but they look less human.
Yeah, that's when I start looking like zombies almost.
And just bodies of mass that just move.
We
Yeah.
actually we skipped over the Sonic part because the Sonic part is before you go back underwater.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we should go backtrack to that.
Yes, because that was also one of my favorite parts too.
So also right before the Sonic part is when you do the really long puzzle mechanic, which is really interesting, where you have to collect all the people to follow you. That's where you get
Yeah.
the helmet on top of your head, which I think is really cool. That like you have to go collect the helmet, and then the helmet breaks, so now it's just on you. So now all the people just follow you everywhere you go. And so it's that process of then now in this large space of a room of like there's a bunch of chambers all over the place. You have to like go solve a bunch of small puzzles to collect more zombies that follow you around, so you could open the door to get into the Sonic.
yeah, because you need like 30 of them or something, like 20 something.
Yeah, 20.
Yeah.
It's 19, then including yourself.
Mhm.
That was really cool because I just honestly really, really enjoyed just watching the animations of them moving and dropping off of edges and falling and stuff and picking themselves up. Like, I had so much fun just observing them doing that
There were
constantly.
some funny parts, like the part where you kind of get away from them and then you get to this new area and they just like start plopping out of a vent or something.
Yeah, they just kind of follow you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
You're their mother. You're the mother goose.
And then you got the part where they like throw you across the gap and then just like walk off the edge.
Ooh, yes, I like that you can interact with them to have them pick you up or carefully grab you if you fall long distances.
Yeah.
That was a nice added small mechanic that really added to the game.
Yeah, and you end up using that mechanic
Quite
a
often.
lot after that point, kind of controlling these crowds so that you have access to higher places or other things like that. It's like an interesting way to give your character more powers, but without actually having more powers.
Yeah.
And so
So then we get
right
to
after that
the
is the
Pulse
Sonic
area.
place.
Yeah.
That place was really cool.
Oh,
Mhm.
the sound design of
Oh, I know.
So good.
so fucking
So good.
And to me, I think that was probably one of the most brutal deaths in the game.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Definitely.
Those-
yeah.
And you die so many times from that, over and over. Your body's just ripped into pieces, just gore and fucking intestines everywhere.
That area is probably where I died the most, and specifically the part where it's like this rotating piece where
Oh yeah.
you match it
Same.
to the ladder to climb up to.
Hmm
I struggled that part the most.
I love the sound though there when like the Sonic thing came and that thing was like rotating around and like how it vibrated.
Yeah, that whole section is really great sound design.
I am
Oh.
pissed though to not know what the fuck that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be really cool to actually know what it is.
Yeah.
But I can also kind of like that they didn't answer it either. I think it's but I understand that I want to know as well. I want both.
Yeah. But
Like
it's very
it's
serious that I'm like, this is fine.
I would say it's some kind of like defense system,
It
but
does
there's
kind of
like
seem what it is.
but there's like a whole part of it where they're like they have people in like gear to obviously test something out with it.
Yeah.
Like maybe to test like spacecraft or watercraft or something like that. So maybe it's some kind of like science experiment, maybe it's some kind of defense mechanism. It's never really explained, but it definitely seems like it's there for a purpose.
I do think what you said, I think defense mechanism is probably the most likely thing. Because up until this point, you don't really see any people. But then after this, you go to the underwater section and you drowned. But then right after that water section is when you go back into the facility and actually start seeing people and humans again. So
Yeah.
it would kind of make sense that it's like this barrier in between those two.
Yeah, who knows?
Okay.
Is it mostly just the scientist's office and all that before? Right after? They just go through more puzzle-like areas, right?
I think so, yeah.
I think so, yeah. So then, really, the most change-up part is like the surprise.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you want to play the game at this point, you probably shouldn't listen on because this is a big spoiler.
Yeah, this is definitely this part.
This is the climax of the game.
Don't listen to us anymore. Go play the game because we purposely didn't spoil this part because it's better to play the game without knowing this.
Because, yeah.
You hear that, you fucking sheep? Buy this piece of shit.
It's for sale right now as we speak on the Windows Store for $7.
Really?
Buy it. Yes,
What?
it is.
That's such a good deal. Goddamn.
Yeah, I hated that I paid $20.
That's like also, like I know that almost nobody will listen to this, but if you do listen to this on the Epic Store right now, Rhyme is on sale. Well, it is free. So
And Rhyme was a good game that we did talk about.
Rhyme was a
Yes.
fantastic game.
Pick it up.
Grab that shit.
So good.
All right, there's one more thing before we actually get to that big spoiler part. Now we're like we finally get into the facility, and like this is where there's like the weird water controls now. Suddenly there's like water on the ceiling.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like gravity inverses, but just for water. And
Yeah, there's like this
water.
all these weird things where you like kind of get to control a little bit of the water, but the water is like above you. And there's one time where the water's above you, and then you get in the water, and then you swim to the top of the water, and then you get out, and you're like, wait, there's just like this level of like water floating in the air. Some
Yeah.
really bizarre science fiction stuff
Yeah.
that they do with all of that.
Yeah, this concept is not new at all, and I've seen it many times. But how they do in this game, I think they presented it really well and added to the mechanics and puzzles very well.
I think
It
like
really added to the what the fuckery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I think those are some of my favorite puzzles. Was with like the upside down water.
Yeah, and then there's also all like the floating bodies in the water that are like tethered, and they're like still moving too. They're like twitching and like they're still alive, and you're like, what the fuck is this? They're like humanoid bodies that are still moving, and there's some really weird stuff. And then that's when you actually get after that, you like turn off the water at one point, and they all fall down, and then they start following you around, even though you don't have a helmet anymore.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And they're all like, some of them are like missing limbs, and they're all deformed into like these weird like Frankenstein like monsters.
Yeah, so it seems like the story then narrates to the point where they initially get people and then control them very directly through the mind control helmet. And then I guess after a certain point, maybe surgeries, crazy experimentations, and or maybe just so much use of time with the mind control helmet just mutates them and just absolutely affects their brain to just always these are the commands, do these when these happen.
Yeah,
Where then you don't need the helmet and they'll just follow the nearest person that seems spiritually intelligent.
Yeah, the nearest conscious being. We're just gonna follow you around now.
Yeah. And it was fucked up because some were missing limbs, some had very deformed bodies, and
some are like covered in bandages, and like there's one with like his head just dangling off to his side. Like his head isn't on him. Like it's just like flailing off the side of him.
That was so fucked up.
And that's also right after that part is when you like get to finally kind of see where you're getting close to the end, because this is when you start to see other regular humans again. And the first time you see the regular humans, they're all sprinting to the right. Everyone's sprinting ahead of you. No one cares about you anymore. It's like there's something bizarre going on.
There's a few people who like glance like, wait, who's this kid? He doesn't seem quite like he belongs here, but like kind of guessing like, oh, maybe he's just a child of another scientist who just
like getting up to the tank. That was probably one of my favorite spots in the entire game, because people keep running over even after you're at the tank. Like people are still running over, people are crowding around. It's almost like it's really good when a world feels like it would be there even if your character wasn't there.
Yeah.
I also like this part because this is the iconic part that is almost showed in every picture from this game.
Yeah, all the advertising was like building up to this moment. Like it's like, what is this? In the trailer for this game, it's like they show that scene. Like this is like the end of the game basically, and they're like, "Oh look, everyone's looking inside this chamber."
But we're not going to show you what it is.
Inside.
Yeah.
What's inside the box?
And I really like how when you're right when you're about to get there, there's that one dude who like runs next to you, and like he's so dedicated to getting there that he like trips over a bunch of folding chairs. Like everyone's just like, I have to get there. I have to see this thing, which then makes you want to see it even more. Like because everyone in the world around you is going there. It's like you want to know too. And then you get there and you can't see shit. You get there and it's like, oh, I'm right at the window and I can't see in. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but then there's a puzzle, of course, clearly to get there, and then you get inside.
Before we go to the inside, I want to mention a few more things about the room before you get in there. There's all those weird, bizarre, fucked up people that are like bleeding
I know
and like smashing their heads against walls.
It totally reminded me of Westworld, when the
Oh
scientists,
yeah.
the robots, and it's just these giant square domes of glass that you can see, just like the subject in it, and then they study the subject.
Yeah, and there's just like tons of folding chairs with like cameras all set up, so they can all like sit and like watch these weird creatures.
And you see a creature that you haven't seen before, which is like it's a definitely a humanoid person, but like they're very tall and gangly. Like,
Yeah, and they're bleeding too. There's like
and just
blood
like
all in the window,
ass.
and they're like, we just gotta get out of here. Like it's just more fucked up shit. Just really bizarre stuff going on. And then you finally, yeah, like I said, then you get to that window, and there's just people all standing there. I love how the golf cart drives up too. Like you get there, and then there's this like golf cart zipping in, and like a bunch of people jump out of it.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a nice touch. And you don't really even see what's in there because the camera doesn't like pan over far enough. You've got to
You
like
can't
actually,
see anything.
you don't see what's in there until you're in the tank.
And, like on your way past that first intro, then you go on top of the tank, and like even on top of the tank, there's like 20 people like looking into it, and like you still can't see it. That's just like really build the anticipation incredibly up to this moment.
Mm-hmm. And you get in the tank and you see.
Okay, wait. This is where I told you guys this is on chat, where I'm like, all my emotions and like feelings, and my overall reaction is just, huh.
It's a big what the fuck moment.
Yeah, it's such a what the fuck moment.
Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
huh.
See, like suddenly you get in the tank, you get like sucked in there, and now you're naked. You're like a little naked kid, and there's this big fucking blob of flesh
Big
and limbs.
tasty meatball.
Yes.
Arms and legs.
And then it also it's covered in 4 of those
Mind control helmet.
mind control helmets all over it. And then you slowly start taking the mind control helmets off. And in the process of taking the 3rd or 4th one off, you get sucked into this blob. And then you become the blob.
Yeah, and the entirety of the end of the game is you being a blob running absolute mad shit through the rest of this facility.
Nothing can stop you.
You're a 1-story tall blob of flesh that is like super strong, and like I love how when you the first thing you do is you go to the window and you just rip the like plug out of the window, and just water rushes out everywhere, and people are just dying all around you. You're just walking over them like you just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's, yeah.
Like it's such a drastic change because you're comparing, like, you're going through all these things that you went through like as a little character as this giant fucking meatball monster, and nothing can stop you. The dogs can't stop you. No people can't stop you. You can destroy or smash through just about anything that gets in front of you.
Most of the time, you're not even intentionally destroying anything. You're just walking, and just stuff is just breaking around you because you're just a massive. You're like a ton of flesh. Like literally, you probably weigh more than a ton. You're just
And the really interesting, like the most interesting thing I think about this part is the fact that you're just in this like normal facility. Like it looks like just a normal business area. Like you run through what looks to be like just a cafeteria, and you're just like smashing through tables, and like these are just like, they look like normal business people. They don't look like the weirdos with the masks or the zombies. That just looks like kind of a regular place that you would work at, and there's just this monster running through it. Also, something
like, just a little bit more to that. It's weird how normal and normalized everything looks after that.
Oh yeah.
As you said, there's just cafeterias and people in offices and everything, but it's so normal because you don't see anything of people being mind controlled or mutants or anything. You're just breaking through a bunch of shit and seeing like behind the scenes stuff, and it's just so normal, and it's weird.
It's super weird. I like how pretty quickly too you like end up falling like 10 stories down.
Yeah.
You like take a wrong step and like break through the floor, and then you're just like clunk 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 clunk, just like tearing through floors as you fall down.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just the process of like you're just like trying to get out, I guess. I don't know. It's like you're just this flesh ball.
What's
like, hey,
great is this game's been teaching you go right all the time. So when you're the flesh, your objective still hasn't really changed. Like,
Yeah, although it's
how to go right.
it's changed from I am sneaking into this facility to I am bashing my way out of it.
I am an unstoppable object.
yeah.
And the thing I was going to bring up earlier is both in the game files, and I believe the developers themselves referred to this guy as the Huddle.
The Huddle?
Yep.
Huddle or Huggle?
No,
Huddle.
Huddle. Why? What? Why?
Because it's a bunch of people coming together and
like they're huddling together like a team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I just love all of the animation and like the disgusting look of this creature.
Mm-hmm.
Like
when you move it, you don't feel like one cohesive thing. You feel like a bunch of things working together.
And like when you start spiraling out of control, you don't really spiral out of control. Like there's still all these limbs picking up underneath you as you're like rolling. Like your body's flipping underneath you, but yet you're still just walking like it's normal.
Yeah, you can completely flip upside down and you will still keep going because you have legs under you.
It's such a weird thing to watch as this like moaning flesh ball is just running all over the place.
Another great thing about that is like again the sound is just amazing because you'll jump basically out a window and smash into the ground and you'll just go and
Too bad
like, legs will like explode off of you.
You lose limbs a lot.
Yeah.
So and pretty much after just a lot of bashing through a bunch of shit, it seems like you find the head honcho of this whole organization.
Did you kill him the first time?
Yeah, did you not?
Yeah, you don't have to kill him.
Totally, yeah.
Oh,
I killed him my first time.
I thought
Yeah, I
that
killed him.
happened.
Yeah, if you like wait in the room, he'll like walk out of the way, and so you don't have to kill
He'll
him.
go hide behind a plant or something.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
But the vast majority of the time, you just like body check him through the window and you smack him to the ground.
Covered in blood, just like his whole body exploded onto you.
Yeah,
You just pancake him.
Yeah. That's pretty great.
Oh, what? Oh! One thing, like, what the fuck? As you're trying to escape, people help you.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah.
a really interesting. I think it's like twofold. I think people are helping you because they want you to leave, and they are also helping you because it seems like they're trying to lead you into a trap.
Yeah, it was so strange because it definitely at times seemed like that. Like sometimes it seems like they're encouraging you to escape. Then other times it seems like they're just leading you to trap you, or they're just doing it to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the guy who's stuck in the room with you and trying to like dial the
key code to open the door for you. Yeah.
I like how you have to like figure that out too, because like if you keep moving towards the door, he keeps running away, and like so there's like this process of like they actually want to help me. Like people actually want to help me now, which is like the opposite of what everything you've experienced so far in the game. Up to this point, everyone kills you on sight, and now suddenly you're this massive blob, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna help you out."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that ties in a little bit to like the alternate ending and some of the like, what do you think the entire like meaning behind the game is? But
we should get to the very end before we go to the alternate ending.
Yeah. So eventually you get to the point where you actually physically bash yourself out of this building out of the facility, and it's like a minute long, just you falling down this cliff, going through trees, and eventually you just end up on this like the edge of this cliff, and you see the sun, and you're outside, and I think it's just
Probably died too.
yeah, probably.
It's not super clear, but yeah, you just when you're falling, man, you just are taking a beating. You're knocking like full-size pine trees out of this off the
Yeah.
hillside.
There's also a theory that you're still in the facility because apparently there's like a diorama of the facility and you see the spot that you end up at the end.
Oh, you're totally right. There is that diorama.
Wait, what? I just missed a little bit. I had my headphones off.
So now before I mentioned how you like fall and like you fall through multiple floors?
Yeah.
When you fall through multiple floors, you end up landing inside a giant diorama. And you're 100% right. That diorama is like basically the same. It's even lit the same way, where there's like the one light that shines on that spot where you end up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually looking at it right now. It's really
Can you send a link? Because I don't know what exactly you meant by diorama.
Alright, I just have a video, so I'm just gonna I copied it at the correct time.
Alright, just throw in the.
I just posted it in the group chat.
Alright, watch.
Oh yeah.
Wait, that room that everybody was looking into?
Yeah, that's like if you
Oh, like sort of the landscape of the area around the pool.
yeah, and if you pause it at like
Yeah, that looks like the cliff area that you fall down, right?
yeah, and then even
Yep.
it's even lit so that where you land on the shore is lit the same way basically.
Oh yeah. I see that. The sunspot
Yeah, it's
direction right before the water.
Yep.
Holy fuck, you're right.
So there's definitely a chance you still are in the facility. Like you never actually get out. You just get into some other, or was it planned? Did they like plan for this whole thing to happen or something? Like what the fuck?
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so yeah, you end up doing that. You fall down a cliff and like that's where the game ends. So do we want to talk about the alternate ending?
Well,
get
obviously.
So throughout the game, there are different things that you can find. There's like 13, 14 of them, and you can interact with them. And I think you get an achievement for each one of them, at least on Steam.
Yeah, you do.
And if you get all of them, there is an area in the game that you can go to, and there's this big circular kind of vault-like thing that will open up if you have all of them. Mitch, you might
Well,
have to
not
explain.
quite. It unlocks the panel right before for you to do a four-directional sequence.
No, he's talking about a different part.
Wait, what?
So, all right, well, I can explain.
Oh, never mind. Okay, yeah.
So yeah, so you collect all these. There's these orbs. You pull cores out of them, and you have to find all 14 of them through the game. And if you find all 14 of them, there's a room at the end of the game with a map that shows roughly where the location of all 14 hidden objects are, and they light up on the board once you have gotten them. So if you find the room, then you can eventually backtrack through loading through the game to find all the rest of them. And then once you have all of them unlocked, this big dome, it's like a big version of the little ones that you've been pulling the cores out of, opens up. You walk inside that one, and you can press a button. You can't see anything, but you can interact once you're inside the dome. And when you walk back out the dome, the map that you saw in the background, all the lights turn off, and then one new light turns on. And the new light that turns on points you back towards the beginning of the game. And the new light is referencing the cornfield that you go through like right at the beginning, really close to the beginning of the game. And in the cornfield, there is a hidden entrance that you can find that you literally can't see it.
Well, you still need to find it.
Yeah.
Because one of the secrets is in that to get the secret ending.
Yes. So you find this thing and you open that. Oh, that's true. You do need to find it first. You're right.
Yeah.
But so you now kind of know where that is. You go down inside this room, and then you find this door with this lever, and the lever you can go up, left, and right, and each one makes a specific noise. And what you're supposed to do is punch in a certain combo to unlock the door. And how you're supposed to find the combo is that when you're in the city, there is a radio next to one of the other cores that you have to, one of the collectibles, that the radio plays on repeat this sound effect that is the same sound as the lever. And so then once you have that combo, you can punch that combo in, and then that combo unlocks the door. And then you slowly progress through a tunnel that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until you get to this room where there are a bunch of computers in the background, all hooked into another helmet, just like the ones you've been wearing throughout the game, that the weird blob creature had attached to him that you've used to mind control zombies. But instead of anyone being plugged into it, there's all these computer cords plugged into it. And then you walk across the room, and there's this big power plug, and you rip it out of the wall. And when you rip it out of the wall, there's sparks and lights everywhere, and then everything shuts down. And when all the power shuts down, you also shut down, in quotations, or turn off, or die, or whatever.
Your character goes into the position that every zombie goes into once you take the hat off.
Yes.
So I'd like to explain my theory first, since you three played it together.
We also talked about it a little bit already.
And I had talked to it to just Zach and Noah just before, just my theory, which sounds
go
like
ahead.
Sort of conclusion. So like my sort of theory was this was just meta as fuck.
Yeah,
and
pretty much.
That this is all about you, the player, playing the game, saying like, you've been controlling this character this whole time, and you unplugged the plug from yourself to play the game of the character, the kid. So it really is just like you've been playing him the whole time. It's just this
you have
real
been.
fourth wall breaking sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it seemed like to me.
It definitely comes off that way to me as well.
Same.
And I think, and they're obviously never gonna actually say how they interpret it themselves as a company, but it seems like the most obvious choice. And I also think I think it goes along with everything that's happened in the game, like perfectly.
So
it's also cool because if you've never experienced that ending and you've only experienced just the mutated part, it kind of just seems like that monster was controlling you the whole time to free itself.
yeah, that's
You, the player.
yeah. So my original thought again was that you're separating control of you from the kid, from the player and the kid. So that's the most obvious kind of thing that your mind jumps to. But the in-game kind of theories are that either the huddle, the blob creature, is controlling your character to try to free itself, or one of the scientists is controlling you to free the blob character, which is kind of the reasoning behind why other scientists might be helping you as the blob escape. So those are kind of the in-game reasonings behind your character removing whatever is controlling its control.
I do like the idea of like the blob kind of controlling your character to like free itself.
Yeah.
I think that seems like there's so many different ways you could interpret all this because there's so much mind control involved across all of these different levels that you just progressively see further and further as you go.
And it was initially wearing 4 mind control helmets. So
yeah.
Who knows?
That was another thing I didn't want to talk about till now. We talked about the lines of people marching. Those very well could all be being controlled by the giant blob. Like maybe it's somehow working with this group of people to like control all these other people.
Because better yet, kind of what I think maybe is because it did have the mind control helmets on. So maybe the scientists are like using this thing to control all of these zombies, like they're using it like some kind of organic supercomputer or something.
Yeah, something weird like that. I think that's totally a possibility.
Whatever the answer is, I think it was a really satisfying ending. Like I thought it was great.
Mm-hmm.
Both endings, like the one where you go on the whole rampage, and then the kind of almost underwhelming kind of alternate ending that just really makes you like think about your character and his motivations in the game. And I thought both of the endings work really well together.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to say, I wasn't expecting this whole thing to turn out to just mutated people. Like when we first see people marching, doing command stuff, like I wasn't thinking, oh, we're gonna have fucked up mutated monster humans. Definitely was not seeing that happening.
Nope, not at
It was
all.
a surprise, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a heck of a game. Do we have anything else, or do we want to move on to like final recommendations?
The only thing is like, I just want to ask one more time about the alternate ending and like your guys' thoughts more specifically about that. Like, do you guys feel like it's fits more? I guess we kind of talked about it already, but like, is it more in that realm of like relating to us, the player, or is it to something else in like relation to the blob?
To me, I saw it more relation to us as a player.
Yeah, I think that's more. What I
But
look-
you can interpret it however you want, so I'm not gonna say I'm right. So
I definitely think it could be interpreted both ways, and I think
yeah.
that it's actually really interesting how they set it up, because it could all be kind of self-contained within the game's story, but also it makes you think about like, oh, is what I'm doing playing this game essentially the same thing as like what I think the blob is doing? Like,
It's all these.
controlling this little person to go fuck up this whole place. And
Oh, I'm just thinking now, like I think it is the purpose, maybe. Well, this is just now my opinion that I just thought of just now. Is like when you play the original part, like, oh, you have in your mindset like, oh, it's been the creature that's been controlling you this whole time to free itself and all that. But then if you play the other way, then it's like, oh no, it's actually been you the entire time who's been controlling it, and it's been your human curiosity to see like what's been happening inside that leads
Yeah.
to this result.
I think what you said about human curiosity is definitely an interesting thing because like the whole game's just called Inside,
yeah,
and like the
your whole
whole
question is what's
what's inside, and then you get to you watch these final endings and you're like, well, I was inside, I did all this, I took control, and I also think that that secondary ending also just is really interesting about like the further iterating on these levels of control. Because if it is inferring in some way that you are the ultimate control, well, think of all the levels of control going downwards through that you've put onto the game.
yeah, because there were parts in the game where you put on one of those helmets to control a zombie, and then the zombie puts on a helmet to control another zombie. So it's like all these different layers of like something controlling something else.
What you could kind of think of it as like, so the computer was all plugged in through the yellow cords, and the yellow cords all led to that giant machine that was kind of interconnected to the big ass blob thing, which then if that also then controlled your player potentially, and then your player then controls these zombies, and then those zombies control more zombies. It's like literally just layer on layer on layer on layer on layer of you controlling everything.
I also don't know if this was intentional or not, but the code that you put into like the kind of machine thing, like up down down, left right, whatever, sounds very similar to like the
Konami code.
yeah.
Oh, it was almost straight up intentionally that, but
Yeah.
not exactly.
It's not exactly. It's really close though.
Yeah, just the first couple sequences. You're like, wow, this is a very famous fucking sequence.
Yeah.
And just to use like the first half of it.
I don't know, I think that this game overall is like really thought provoking.
Yeah.
It's really it's a disturbing world that really sucks you into this experience, and it just makes you think about a lot. It's like you're just always, because like nothing is told to you, everything is shown to you. It's just you reacting and kind of trying to figure everything out. So you're always just questioning things. It's all about you trying to question and figure out what is going on.
And I love games and movies that do that. I hate when stories are like very obvious about leading you to the answer. I like when it's more left up to interpretation.
Yeah,
Except for something
definitely.
like Lost, because Lost was bullshit.
Disagree.
Are we about good for final recommendations?
Yeah.
Seems
Well,
like it.
I don't know about
For the most part.
recommendations since if anyone's been listening since far, like
At this point, you should have stopped and played the game. But if you
I've
haven't
gotten
yet,
like halfway through the game. The
Yeah.
entire podcast length.
we'd almost be done. Why did you listen to us?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that I would say this is a must play for anybody who likes games. Like, if you really genuinely, with a passion, hate side scrolling puzzle platformers, maybe don't play it. Maybe watch a Let's Play or something of it. But if you enjoy video games at all, I think this is a must play. I would recommend this game to people who don't like games. I mean, this is almost, I would consider like, this is pretty close to like an interactive movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's definitely close to that.
the only thing I would have liked was I think $20 was pushing it a little bit for me personally.
Yeah,
I
$20.
think 15 would have been good.
Yeah, I think $20 for like
Very well worth.
a game.
I think because it's a very high quality game, I'm fine paying $20. But if you can get it for like,
I'm not complaining too hard.
if you can get it for $7.50, that's a steal.
Oh yeah, buy it for $7. That's amazing. This game is worth. Like this is it's like going to a movie, but you get to control the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really interesting experience. The whole thing.
Yeah, definitely. Also, something completely random that will probably not mean anything to anybody except for me. What I do for these episodes is I'll find like splash art of the games for like to put up with the episodes and like on YouTube and everything. And the thing that Playdead has done is on their website you can download like 4K images for like all of their promotional material, all of their trailers, all of that stuff. And that is just very good marketing, in my opinion.
Yeah, they have a lot of really good. They did a really good job marketing this game, just in general.
Yeah.
Like all that hype build up.
Yeah, I think it was like what, in E3 2014? It was like the first trailer was out, I think. But overall, I absolutely look forward to whatever Playdead does in the future.
They've put out a single piece of concept art of what the next game's going to look like.
Really?
Yeah, I'll look it up quick and
Link that
find it.
shit in the chat.
It's literally almost nothing, but it's very enticing.
I can
Because-
with almost nothing.
Good.
Well, maybe we should finish this up before we.
Yeah,
Keep talking.
The stream won't know.
Noah, Nick, would you recommend this?
Yeah.
Yes, I would definitely recommend it. It's definitely worth at least playing through once, for sure.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Oh, that's a good looking piece of concept art.
Yeah.
It's such a like it doesn't say much, but it says enough that you're like, ooh, what is this?
Mhm.
I already get similar vibes, but
Oh,
just
man,
different story.
what if this is? Oh man, I can.
This
I'm thinking,
feels very
what if-
spacey.
What if it's more 3D? Like it's not just left or right, but what if you're like moving forward?
That'd be cool.
It could be interesting. It'd be interesting to see what they did, but at the same time, both Limbo and Inside have been very similar. So I feel like it'd have to be
It's
similar.
probably going to be kind of like Inside, like 2.5D or whatever. But I can dream, damn it.
I don't know. I'm excited for whatever the next game is
Oh,
because
yeah.
Limbo and Inside have been amazing experiences, and I can't wait to find out what their next thing they make is going to be.
Hell yeah.
I would love to go work there, but then I'd have to go move to Europe, so I don't know if that's going to happen.
But then you wouldn't be able to work at Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's going to be pretty cool too. So.
Yeah, you're just gonna be like walking around like, oh, it's no big deal. I worked at Naughty Dog. You like open up your jacket and it's like just a giant Naughty Dog logo. But
Just any last thoughts? Anybody?
yeah, it's a good game. Buy it. Why haven't you already played it? What are you doing here? Get out.
Literally,
Point, if you listen
everyone
to
should
this
play it.
entire thing,
What?
you fucked up. If you listen to this entire thing without playing it, you fucked up.
Yeah, you've. Oh man, I'm trying to remember this. There was like this long. There was this. This is again completely off tangent, but there was this post about. There was this Twitter post about like people complaining about really difficult games, and there was this long Twitter post about like you cheated not only the game but yourself.
Oh yeah, that like meme.
Yeah, the copy pasta, which has just been phenomenal. But if that's everything, we can call it.
Go play the game.